So my dad got rid of his Kindle. And that's a hand-me-down Kindle. Number 2.
His Kindle?
His Kringle.
Is he a little old for that?
Yeah, right, exactly. Welcome to the Dresden Files podcast. You didn't catch me.
This is the second day in a row Ken dolls have come up, but I can't bring up the other conversation on real life.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
No.
Man, if we were monetized, we were getting demonetized.
It's unprofessional. We're demonetized anyway because we span different countries.
That's
not allowed.
Dresden uses a Ken doll as a focus. See how I wrap that around? Like
there you go. That's a thing.
Right? That's Great Peril. Yeah, that's big brain.
Very low,
right
Justin.
there.
Well, welcome to the only podcast where you'll get Danish recipes and some discussion about magic.
And where
and
it is claimed
Ken
New
dolls.
York style pizza is not superior to other types of pizza.
Yeah, by
Flashpoint.
Just gonna start
Europeans.
throwing elbows. Like, shouldn't we talk about news and tell people we're going to spoil everything? Like Chicago's pizza sucks.
I would love to talk about news, but there is nothing to talk about.
I know, right?
Apart
There
from the
is an
ongoing
important-
casting call if you live in California. That's it.
Which
But-
for shooting dates that have already passed.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But also, there is an imminent announcement that's been imminent for like a month.
In 2 weeks now, at least.
Right. So
Things are bound to be announced at some point.
We are going to announce what we are going to announce when we announce it.
So books, I hear he's written one. So we're just
I've heard
waiting
he's
for the
written like
publishing
some
date.
20
I was going to
something.
say, he's written a few.
Also, P.S. If you freaking tell us one more time that it's totally coming out in April because you saw it on Amazon, I will hex you somehow. Like seriously,
Yeah,
until
Amazon's done that
Priscilla
thing
or
before.
Jim or freaking the publisher comes out and says it, it doesn't matter. That every company does it. Every shop.
I was gonna say,
Microsoft does
they're
it with
placeholder
games.
dates.
Like, yeah, like you could tell us, hey, guess what? We hear they're making one, but we know that, right? But like, just because it's coming out doesn't mean April. You know. So.
Oh yeah, I have Metroid Prime 4 on pre-order and have since there was an Amazon discount. So yeah, Amazon does this pre-order stuff way early. As long as it exists in your consciousness, they'll take your money.
And they've done
Or
it
your
before
pre-order.
where they tried to pressure Jim into finishing a book faster by putting a date on it. At least that's the way he described it.
Oh wow.
Wait, Amazon tried to do that or someone else or the publisher
Yeah.
did?
Someone had asked something or was talking about one of the QAs. I don't really remember, but Amazon had put out a date and it was not going to be done, but it seemed like they were trying to put pressure on him and the publisher to get it to that date. So
I thought he
How
would be
cool
too
is
small
that,
in the
though?
grand Amazon thing for them to even like
Right.
want to do that or care.
Right? Like how cool is that Amazon's like, man, sales are slumping. We really need another Jim Butcher book. So, you know.
You know, you've made it. Amazon is strong on you.
When Jeff Bezos wants more of your money.
Maybe he's just a fan. He's like, I want the next fucking Dresden book.
This comes from the
imagine?
top.
If he was a fan, he could fucking green light it for Amazon Prime and we all go watch it on
sitting
Amazon.
there looking at his stock portfolio like he's Ferrovax. It's like, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, multi-billionaires, they are no longer like billionaire is not a classification. You are a dragon. So
So Elon Musk is a dragon?
Well, he's Serial-Thrax, but yeah, he's a dragon.
And today we're talking about Skin Game, I guess. Part 2 of 30.
we made it into chapter 8. So at this rate, it'll only take us like 7 shows again. So
yeah, right on track.
Right.
We're kind of sort of in chapter 8 because we kind of already talked about some pieces of it, but we're going to go there anyway because it was an easy like bookmark. Kind of in the middle of Dresden and Hannah Hash are getting ready in all their fancy clothes to go to the party.
Yay. And nothing eventful ever happens at parties.
They're very boring affairs.
Uh-huh.
I remember a certain party.
That was a long time ago. That wasn't really a thing.
No? Okay.
Different party.
Different, yeah.
Okay.
It was a costume party. They tend to get more rowdy.
That's true.
Well, at least they have aliases. It's kind of a small costume, right?
Is there a reference there, a pop culture reference that I don't get, by the way?
What?
Who?
His name?
Oberheit?
Yeah.
dude, you are part
You're
German,
fucking
aren't you?
German, dude.
I'm not German. I'm Danish.
You're German
It's the
adjacent.
same language. There's so much little difference.
Yeah. Ober, like it's one letter different in English, and then height is literally the same word. So like,
So he's
I
just
mean,
really
I guess
tall.
it could have been more specific if they called him Uber height. Wouldn't that have been literally German? So, but yeah,
Yeah,
they're just
it's-
calling him extremely tall.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Phelps.
Oh.
How
Ben,
many times have you read this book and you didn't get that joke?
Can you call it your favorite book?
yeah, that's what I don't get it. I didn't get
The
it.
only thing that was holding
like,
it.
okay,
so,
okay.
It's so on the nose that 3 characters say, "Really, Dresden? Really?" And he's like, "I didn't come up with it. Come on, that's like 5 people are in on the joke, and you're not."
Okay,
Like,
okay. Since you're comparing it to my native tongue, I was like, if I were to say that in Danish, it sounds nothing like that.
okay, how does it sound in Danish?
Kringlepork? Kringlepork.
No, that's dessert.
Mr. Overhøj.
That sounds pretty close, dude. Like,
No.
Again, if I substituted a letter, it sounds like exactly the same thing.
I mean, to be fair, that name would make no sense, but
Definition.
if I were to translate it directly, that would be like how you would say it. But it would,
I guess that's the advantage of English robbing like every other language to get, language. So, but anyway,
so now I get it.
Okay.
So we've explained the most critical joke in the entire book to Andreas after it's been how many years?
I mean, it happens a fair bit in Dresden. Was like, I get this. I see this as a pop culture reference or some sort of joke, but I don't get it.
That's why I try to add those to my notes, usually for the director, because she doesn't watch Marvel or Star Wars movies. But then you like, okay, I'll bring it down an extra notch just for you.
I mean, that's not Star Wars related. I can't be held
No, it's
accountable.
German related.
Isn't.
Germanic
And
language.
I'm not sure. Okay, I had German in school for like 3 months, and then I was like, "Fuck this shit," and I dropped it.
Okay, on the family tree of Germanic languages, Danish is on the other side of German from English. So, like, both of these languages. You should understand the middle.
I know they all share a root, but they all sound very differently, even if they share the same language root.
So let's sidestep this just a teeny tiny bit and be like, have you never heard Ubermensch or Nietzsche or
I've heard that before. But
anyway, so scars, and then they go to the peninsula.
Oh, we're actually on the book now.
Right.
We're trying.
And I mean, that's literally like Valmont's opening line, I think. Like, okay, after the whole, like, there's a call for Mr. Oberheit, right? Which is, the call sign for, it's a spy movie now. So spy is a genre of movie where people pretend to be something other than they are. How much do I got to explain? Okay, anyway. So
now you're just being toxic. That was mean.
Okay.
I know it's a heist book.
Right.
Okay. I know it's a spy book.
So yeah, Lashiel is totally manipulating Dresden through his stomach now because they both get there and they're very hungry. Okay, so there's a call for Oberheit. They go into like a cubby hole or like a side hallway or some shit and have a conversation. And Valmont is like, give me the money. And he's like, nope, you should run. And she's like, I'm totally going to burn the thing. And he's like, okay, do it. And she's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like,
also,
that doesn't
she wants her
sound
money
right.
first. She doesn't care. You destroy it, fine, but you give me the money first.
Right.
There was a small conversation between Asher and Dresden about how Valmont is being manipulated. And it took until like the end of the whole thing for Dresden to actually get it.
That it was an audition? That part? Or
It was an audition also that Nicodemus is dangling the vengeance that Valmont wants in front of her to make her take the job.
Right. Which is just silly because, like, she's immortal. Like, what is Nicodemus afraid of? So like to him, it's like, sure, here is 35 cents, if that's what it takes for you to take the job, whatever. But what I thought was kind of interesting is that Valmont has a bunch of data that she presumably stole from the Fomor.
Mm-hmm.
So
she flat out said it that she stole from the Fomor.
Right, but I mean, I guess what I'm saying is presumably like hacked it or something, like I got the impression she got it from computers, but maybe because I am a computer nerd. And I was like, well, why would they use that? And I guess, do they not follow the same rules? And again, why would they like use computers or something? But maybe that's just my impression.
Well, everyone uses computers except basically the White Council, because they're the only ones that magic is a problem for.
Mab doesn't use a computer. I doubt any of the fake.
I guarantee you she can if she needs to.
Yeah.
Sure, but that's not the same thing as saying does.
Well, no, but I feel like
I'm sure
there's aspects of like the Winter Court that deal with that kind of stuff. Maybe she doesn't do it personally, but like we see Odin sitting in front of his own little makeshift magic computer thing.
Right.
We know the Reds do.
The Fomor have
We
their
know the White Council
servitors,
do.
right? Like they're all their turtlenecks, and the people like the way that you see what's his fucking face? What Quiet or whatever out of a Ghost Story? Listen, that was it. He wanted so desperately to help whoever he thought was his master that he would have like, hey, the computers are really cool and they have a lot of information that can make you more efficient. And they'd probably just bring people up to speed really fast.
And
hold on. Just so we're clarifying what I heard, you're suggesting that the Fomor have computer-based training for their fucking servitors.
Well, like, if the information needs
how to
travel.
be a minion 101. So, I mean, I was thinking payroll, right? Because that's something that would be useful potentially. Like you could see in the 21st century, you could see troop movements, so to speak, and stuff like that. But you full on went, all right, I'm just because the dude's name is Listen, now I'm going to have headphones. He's sitting in front of a computer. Like, oh my God, sexual harassment training is not what you would have expected. It's actually quite the opposite for the bad guys, so.
How to do sexual harassment.
Right.
The pivotal question is then, what operating system are they using?
Well, I mean, obviously,
XP.
they're using
Oracle.
NT4. No,
That's all I got.
All right. So anyway, so Valmont kind of gets hooked, but it doesn't matter so much because Asher comes up and makes a mess of the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of get jumped anyway.
Yeah.
As the valets walk past for like the third time, and Dresden's like, "Do you fucking mind?" And they're like, "Actually," and they tip over like the whole buffet and just start like attacking them.
But don't the Octokongs come out of the buffet like they're
the
carrying a whole
calamari
bunch
is
of
particularly fresh in the peninsula, so.
Octokongs.
So just for a pause, you guys all get this reference, right? Since I'm the reference guy. So
What reference?
Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah.
Octokongs. Why did it have to be Octokongs?
Oh, snakes.
So-
Got it. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't get that.
I didn't get it until you told me it's a
There-
reference, but yeah, okay.
Well, there was a reference earlier about Pitt and Clooney, and I'm sure Andres has only ever seen Ocean's 12. So
I've seen
that's
all the
what-
Oceans movies.
Okay,
well, they're in Ocean's 12 too, so what does it matter?
sure. It's-
Still disappointed that there wasn't like no Pitt or Clooney in the newest one.
Why would? Oh no, we're not getting into that.
Yeah. So Dresden asking the important questions about like he has to name it because how are you going to wail on something properly if it doesn't have a name? So
Yeah, it's just rude otherwise.
Octokongs is a good one.
Although he didn't come up with a name for the flying monkeys, I don't think.
true. He was mostly running at the time, I think. So
He's mostly running every time.
right. Yeah, I forget the line that leads up to this, but I caught the end of it, which was lucky for me. I'm not really a subtle guy, So as
Isn't
they just
it-
start to throw down.
Isn't that something he did with the Chloro Fiend back in?
Yeah.
Would that have been Summer Night? Yeah.
Yes.
Has he done that sort of thing otherwise besides just these
Well-
two instances?
He occasionally names bad guys, but he also names allies, right? So like that's why you get Yuri instead of Uriel, and you get Ivy instead of Archive, and stuff like that.
Okay.
So his
Sure.
naming isn't always in the moment, like before I kick your ass, but it also kind of, I feel like, shows up with Sharkface, right, in Cold Days, where he's like, I'm gonna give you my name and I demand your name so that I can fucking whoop your ass, and as
Fair
an
enough.
outsider
Those
he
were
had
true
to.
names at least.
Right, exactly. So
Sure. And then the Toot keeps getting new titles. I feel like there's kind of a spectrum there of kind of playing off people's names and then just naming the type of thing that something is.
well, So Butcher's actually talked about it. It's like A, it's about being a wizard, because names have power, but B, Dresden particularly is powerful by doing it and things along those lines. So Dresden's doing it because he's a smartass or something like that. Like in his mind, he's not necessarily doing it because it's going to give him extra power over it. Otherwise, he'd probably be a little bit more creative or do it a little bit more often. But it has that side effect, so at least word of Jim, basically. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So they're fighting the Octacongs, not very subtly. Building is at extreme risk of being burnt down.
Yay.
Like you do.
Mm-hmm.
They get in like a back service hallway and basically get jumped by two dudes with what he actually names the gun in this case too. M240s. They're basically, the big old 50 cals that you're used to seeing for the most part. So it's particularly interesting because he likes to call shotguns riot guns and things like that, like you do for noir style, and he usually gets maybe a brand, like Murphy uses a SIG, or you get a caliber sometimes, but this time he's like, no, it's that particular gun.
But Murphy uses the P90, which is very specific.
Which I'm pretty sure he never actually names it as such. We just all know that's what it is.
Okay. No, he named it a couple of times, and then she named him Gary or George or something.
Right. George sounds right, but
yeah, George. Okay. And they're fighting. I don't remember if there was anything actually interesting up until like Asher comes by and shows how good she is with the fire magic.
Yeah, because she like explodes the octagon.
Yeah,
heads, I think only.
Yeah.
So it was extreme heat, which also required extreme precision to be able to control as well as she did.
And Harry says something along the lines of he barely would have believed that coming from a senior council member.
Mm-hmm.
Like that level of skill, which I like these kind of subtle nods because it shows you the level he's playing on, right? Like Dresden gets surprised by some of the capabilities, and even like to me, I was surprised by some of the stuff he pulls off. And so it starts to show you like he really is starting to push into that bigger league. Like this isn't like, okay, we're all level 5, let's go do a bank heist, right? This is like we're all level 15 to 20. Like, we have all of the tricks. There's very few people we're literally the cream of the crop, right? Like in Gray's case, there's maybe 2 or 3 other dudes who could have even done what he does, let alone were available for the job, type of stuff. And so it's kind of cool. I mean, Harry's the Winter Knight, so he's the only one who can do what he does in that regard. They would have had to find another wizard or some other nonsense to do it. So
I always assumed that Leah could have taken the place.
Possibly. I'd be curious if she'd be inclined to loan her out after the whole Nemesis thing. So.
Or Leah might want to take her own vengeance on that, an extra measure of it as well.
Right.
It would have been really interesting, actually. But if Dresden wasn't involved in this, we wouldn't get this story.
I know. I'm sorry, it's not that book. But, there you go. It'd be like, Butcher, please just give me like a novella of her on a job, So. We
that
win.
Would be so much fun.
Yeah.
All right. So Asher's scary good, and then they're leaving the building, and Valmont does a really snazzy like disguise exchange, and Dresden walks out of the building screaming about how he's going to sue because he was emotionally distressed.
Ruined my wardrobe's peace of mind.
Don't forget, there's another cultural reference for Andreas that they have to meet out of there.
I got that one.
You did get that one? Okay, great. Just want to make sure you
understand. I watched that as a kid.
Coyote and Roadrunner.
Did you mean 2 days ago?
Or is that how you learn English?
But
and I'm not talking the beep beeps. I realize that was a failed opportunity and a joke there, but
I think his English
cartoon where no one talks.
His English is much better than the Coyote.
Right.
It's true.
I did actually learn English by watching TV, mostly.
There's the snazzy quick change that Anna Valmont does, like you said. I like that.
I forgot. So I was being clueless here, but like Valmont does talk about like she's worked jobs for like the Svart elves and all these other powers, and they do all this stuff, and the stuff that she stole was for Harvey, the banker. So yeah, it is financial information that she's after, and like an agent, presumably, whether he knows it or not, he's in the mix, so
yeah.
Which is important because that's the second job. So
yeah, so she stole information on Harvey from the Fomor for Nicodemus to be able to use to break into Marcone's vault.
Right. Which I mean, I guess we could assume that the Fomor have the information because he's one of Marcone's dudes, right?
Yeah.
So,
and obviously everyone who has a vault there, not only Hades, they might be trying to get all information from anything going on in Chicago, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure. At least in this particular instance. So,
did the information have to be stolen from the Fomor, or was that maybe just the easiest way to get it? Like, was Nicodemus trying to cause something with them?
I think you need to take a step back. He stole it from the Fomor, so he didn't tip off Marcone, would be my guess.
Okay.
Because just like they don't want to say the H word, while they're planning the job, they also don't want to take a poke at Marcone so he knows something's up. It's like, oh, the one guy other than me who has access to this particular vault, they stole his information. I better lock him down and make him disappear. So
right. And if the whole thing is a setup to begin with, there's only so many avenues you could allow this information to quote unquote leak out to be stolen in the first place that would not then arouse Nicodemus's suspicions.
Also, pretty sure Marcone would not mind, taking the Fomor down a peg, since he's like,
sure. I mean, anything that pisses them off is probably fine. But
I can't wait till we have another whole thing. Like, the only thing I need to do to stop the Fomor is let you be you, Mr. Dresden. So
that'll be fun. That one's definitely happening in Peace Talks.
Except he's like 60 years old and he's like, but this time I joined the fight. And he like hooks up his knives and shit for no reason.
So speaking of which, so I specifically put this note in here for you, EG. So if you hate Murphy and now Marcone so much for being trained professionals, what do you feel about Valmont?
I don't hate Marcone.
Yeah,
Marcone's fine.
Disdain there for that statement.
No, I was projecting, like, when he has to when he hats up, it's a little different because it's like tactical and careful, and he was SEALs or Marines, whatever he was.
He was Marines.
I assume Marines, but I think they've said a couple of different things, but they just kind of figure Marines.
Right, and it's not that I have a problem with Murphy's any one skills individually. It's the combination. It's the ribbon-winning marksman plus Aikido master plus katana expert, so on and so forth, and you're 5 foot nothing. Like,
she just doesn't have a social life, dude. She's like,
right, and you run a police department. I mean,
she's been divorced twice. That's some.
And then she's off the force. She's been working with Einenhardt on our guard.
She was.
So
and I'm sorry. So she didn't have those skills beforehand.
Right. That's the thing. Like she's had those skills at least since proven guilty, if not earlier. Like she started out as a marksman, which is part of why she had her own dies all the way back in Full Moon, so that she could make her silver heirloom bullets. And then you start to get into. I mean, actually, it might even be the next book, but it's not very long until Dresden starts training with her a little bit, and they at least do staff work, because that's where Dresden learned all his skills.
That was Blood Rights.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, it's fairly early, but I think the reason why it doesn't bother me is because all those skill sets, other than the katana use, are adjacent to real police work anyway. They're skills you'd want your local police force to have, even though you'd be surprised how little most of them do have. And then the katana one could be a stretch, but there is some swordplay.
It's a hobby
as well.
Well, yeah, I think it might go along with doing the martial arts in general. You're adjacent to being around katanas, and like, maybe I'll pick that up too. Well, now that I've mastered the Aikido stuff, it's fine. It's fine.
It's like when people say that Rey can handle a lightsaber because she had a sword-like weapon and a staff. These things do not translate over that well.
I think it's fine. In Star Wars, it makes sense too.
Dedicated.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Makes perfect sense.
No, it doesn't.
Today on the Star Wars podcast.
Right. But anyway, as for Valmont, Valmont's fine. She's a little. She's got that attitude where she thinks she's the smartest person in the room, except she's clearly shown every time she's involved to get being manipulated. So I don't see why she should think that. But she's harmless in my opinion.
I think she knows her limitations.
She probably usually is, except when it's Dresden related.
Again, she doesn't,
So if that's not Mary Sue for what she is, like
right, and it probably is, but I don't care enough about the mechanics of safe cracking to.
But Aikido and target shooting, that's
well, again, it's basically one thing. Like she's supposed to be this little femme fatale spy insert, and she just does that. Okay, fine. If she then starts being like James Bond, where she becomes a wheelman, and she can also, has this, I don't know, take Mission Impossible, and she can just disguise herself as anything with a mask. If these things kept building up, that would then also be a problem.
Gotcha. Who says she isn't? But okay.
Well, so far it has not been shown. So when it's shown, then I will complain.
Right.
I can only complain about so much that I think is going to happen versus what has actually happened.
Right.
I'm gonna take this point. Go back to the book. They walk out, and Murphy points out that Dresden has a hole in his leg. He got shot at some point and didn't feel it, even though Valmont had seen it.
By a 50 cal, no less. So.
Yeah. And that's when he names what gun it was from. It was maybe 30 feet away. And she starts trying to patch him up, and it doesn't really do much because it's a 50 cal bullet hole.
Right.
Yeah, it's nothing.
So they go back to her place where Butters meets them.
Yeah.
Your other favorite?
I do like the. I do like you were talking about it being a setup on Marcone's part to Marcone and Mab to get Nicodemus and the Fomor down a peg. They know something about Anna Valmont too, that not just she's in town, she's involved in this. So do you think they're involved in getting Nicodemus savvy to that Anna Valmont's in town and would be perfect for it? How do you think they would have let Nicodemus know that Anna Valmont would be perfect for the heist that he's trying to pull off?
Well, Nicodemus was already aware of her, right? Because of Death Mask.
That struck me as something that was more him maybe wanting to involve her because A, she survived the last time and that would stick in his craw. And B, she is actually good at what she does, so okay, have her.
Presumably she was, even if she was hired the first time because they were good at their job.
Well, yeah, it strikes me more that Gray was the obvious plant set up that they were leading him, whether they actively made sure those other alternatives were taken or not, they were clearly steering towards the direction of Gray. I feel like Valmont was probably his idea on his own.
And just because we know that she wants revenge too, and that she'll be motivated to act against Nicodemus to some degree.
Right, and then that gives him a perfect out. It's like, well, she shot me, so I had to cut her head off. What am I going to do?
So yeah, Nicodemus would have his own reasons. That's true. It just seems so perfect to have so many people who hate Nicodemus having to work with him. And basically everyone who hates Nicodemus lives, and only people who don't like Nicodemus die in this book.
It could be something.
Besides, Tessa.
Well, let's face it. Granted, Mab owes him a favor, but I have to imagine throughout time and space, there's lots of people that owe him favors that could or could not have more or less been a facsimile to Dresden. But he did Dresden because he's got a score settle with them. He thinks he's superior to him, and this, that, and the other. So
that's true. I see that.
They play him, but it's his own downfall half the time too.
I could see Mab trying to find a way to plant Valmont in his mind because she wants more people around Nicodemus that want to screw him and give Dresden an ally.
It is certainly not impossible.
Yeah.
It just seems so perfect that they're getting Valmont, they're bopping the Fomor on the nose with a newspaper, they're getting Nicodemus to send his goons to do it, and so they're just damaging their enemies and helping their co-belligerents. Anyway, it just seemed like a nice little move there on their part.
Okay, so they go to Karen's house and they talk about Harvey and that he is a investment banker. in various other things, but he seems to be clean and no obvious embezzling, so he's probably reliable. Poor for him.
High-level functionary.
Harvey was the real friend we made along the way in this book.
I mean, I felt bad for him.
What was that, Justin? Your sound just cut out or something.
Yeah, I can't hear Justin.
It's because of the tripod.
Might be. All right.
Can't hear you.
We're a professional podcast. We have technical difficulties.
That's what makes us professional.
Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Can we can we get past the Butters part before I kill myself, please?
Oh, now we can hear you. What the fuck?
I don't know, man.
It's
Okay.
because he's reclined.
It must be. I mean, the mic
He is
is
really
now
far from the
1
microphone.
foot.
Sounds like.
It's like, no, it's 1 foot away, so it's closer than I usually have it, but whatever. So Butters basically gives him a whole sob story, right? So, Will and Georgia wound up in the hospital. They got a daughter now. Everybody's lost somebody. You can't keep doing this to yourself because you're not healing. You're just, pushing through it. You're not Superman. You just don't feel the pain. He gets knocked out and has a couple of dream sequences.
Well, there was that thing about Pet Cemetery and wondering if Dresden came back different, especially when the first thing that Dresden does when he wakes up is try to pay off a debt to Butter or
Not
Bob.
the first thing he does.
Yeah, it's first we had to break and enter. So
He very pointedly asks about Andy and how Butters is doing and this, that, and then Butters just, no, we're not, I can't.
no, I'm pretty sure he didn't do that until he was prompted, right?
No, he says it. He says it.
I'm not baiting you. I'm serious.
So, yeah, because Andy was there. Okay, let me get to work. How are you and Andy doing? Still good. Then Butters starts working on him. He passes out. You get the open your eyes, you fool. She's right in front of, and then he comes back to, and he starts having, am I going to make it? Barring an infection, super glue, this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Then he talks about giving Bob the skull. And yeah, he has a passing mention of paying off a debt, but he's still himself about it. It's like, no, Bob's still going to be a bitch about this and complain that it's not good enough. He's still, it's like, hey, I owe him this favor.
Right.
Big fuck. He would have said the exact same thing if he wasn't the Winter Knight.
Yeah, I mean, so while Butters is the vehicle here, I really feel like that's Butcher kind of putting that bug in your ear that, like, this is, because it's the same thing as a cell phone use for Molly, right? Like, Dresden sees the subtleties of, holy shit, she can use a cell phone, and she never could as a true mortal. And Butters is saying, hey, did you know you seem to be paying off debt like the Fae? And that's just more doubt of Dresden. Like, Dresden's obviously being subtly manipulated by the mantle, but this is probably an avenue that he hadn't considered until Butters said so.
And if the conversation had been left in that, fine. They've had conversations like this before about him and his power. He's had him with Murphy. Great. Once you then add then Butters has a conversation with Murphy where she's like, you got to have faith in the dude.
Right.
Then he sneaks up and nearly costs them everything. And then he gets to have a lightsaber based on fucking faith. No. I'm not buying this.
Well, I mean, you have and you will. And
No, yes, I will purchase it, but I'm not happy about it.
This is why Star Wars is going downhill, because people will still go see the movies even though they are shit.
Yeah, but this one's going to make a lot less money, and I'll be very happy.
It
That's
better
the
fucking.
issue for a different time. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, again, fine. If they have the conversation and it's supposed to be about to get Harry to recognize things in himself, fine. It would be akin to, so he sees Molly use the cell phone, and he has that line where he's like, "I was suddenly very worried for her," and then he follows her on a job she's supposed to be doing as Winter Lady, and then he almost fucks it up, but then he gets, $2 million at the end. Like what? Why? It's the epitome of failing upward.
I
Anyway.
kind of like it when he's upset.
Butters is the best character in the books.
Oh, you're European.
Definitely
You don't know anything.
top 3, maybe. So
Okay, Ebenezer's better, but
Ebenezer's
Butters is
better.
close.
Sonya's better. Shiro is better.
No.
Everybody's better.
Toot Toot is better.
Toot is better.
All right, Butters' first job, he had to fight a demonic teddy bear. Come on.
The Loop Guru is better.
Okay,
Can I
stop,
have admin privileges?
Stop. We're 38 minutes into this, and we made it like 2 freaking chapters. So
We made it more than that.
Okay.
We're doing
made it.
So-
okay.
he falls asleep, and then Molly shows up and info dumps everything that's been happening in her neck of the
This
woods.
was a great dream sequence to have because it's the confusing things of people running around in all the various cars and traffic. It's like, why can't you drive correctly? Where the fuck are you going? Oh, where the fuck am I going? It was just a great thing to hold in my head.
Not
and
just
then
that,
Molly's
but the
there.
whole like, no, you're in my dream. No, wait, you're in my dream. Oh, wait, we're actually communicating for realsies. So
And then a woman's
It's
voice on the
forced,
radio of,
How are you doing this? I'm not doing this.
right.
someone on the radio saying, and Harry Dresden is about to die because he's too stupid to see what's right in front of him.
Molly's been attacked 50 times since the start of the year. I don't remember, when does this take place? It's like
It's a year after Cold Days, so
I was like-
what time of the year.
So it would be around December or January, wouldn't it? Because Cold Days happened in October.
no, well, yeah, the Wild Hunt came around last time, so it was October. It was his birthday. It was literally on his birthday.
Yeah.
Well, it's the thaw, right? Like it just barely started to thaw, so people could start getting to the island because.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
right.
So,
So
it's like
so it's probably like February or whatever,
March-ish, probably.
maybe even.
Yeah, okay. So she's been attacked 50 times in short order, but she's okay because they're just totally just feeling her out, not trying to gank her.
Yeah.
Well,
and she's
that's
very
two
accepting of
birds,
that.
one stone. If they kill her, fine. Then she wasn't worth it. And if they don't, well, bully for them. They have a competent winter lady for now.
Right.
And she's under the polar ice caps with whatever that wizard that was offhandedly mentioned in Summer Night, I'm sure.
Is that actually? Didn't someone ask Jim about that? And he said it was something completely different. But
I feel like there was a lot of crosstalk because I feel like she was also supposed.
you
Cut out.
You cut out.
Cut out.
again.
She was supposed to be what?
I seem to recall he did mention that that one was part of a short story, and I thought it was going to be part of Cold Case, but it wasn't. So I don't know. I mean, under the polar ice caps, and he's down there, and she was down there, so it just, I feel like people are going to make that connection regardless.
Well, is it possible that it's through the Winter Mother or something? There's some connection that they have through the power of Winter, and the Winter Mother arranges them to talk or something like that. That is the only one who would be able to overrule Mab.
Star Wars. Because isn't that literally what Snoke does?
Well, yeah, that was a joke I made, that it was for Skype.
Oh.
It was like them talking. But I don't know that it has to be any sort of like games that somebody's setting up this connection over one over the other. I mean, Molly is already predisposed to this kind of magic, so even if she's just like outwardly doing something, and Dresden, maybe his id is picking up on it and trying to force him to realize shit.
I think the Force Skype thing. I think Mab deliberately caused it because this was her
entirely
ploy.
possible. No, I was not going to say no. But I mean, it's also the kind of thing that, we know Molly has to help him later, and they have that discussion about how Mab kept her busy, but there's, I guess to clue her in that she's got to finish up quickly and be back.
Hmm.
That would be fine. Either way. I doubt it was Mother Winter. I mean, she just can't do that kind of stuff. She can, but she's not allowed.
Mother Winter would probably say, if you can't get yourself out of the situation, you don't deserve to be the Winter Knight.
And I wouldn't want to be in her dreamscape.
That's a great way to be a boss, right? It's just like, if you can't solve it yourself, you don't deserve your position. I don't gotta do anything.
Obviously.
Okay. And then after the driving around in the Blue Beetle that's no longer alive dream, he thinks he's awake and has another dream.
I dream
God
within a dream.
damn it,
2
Justin,
levels.
you can't hear you.
2 levels. The
I know.
Inception's that shit.
Yeah. This dream section with Karen, it's like the first time I was reading it, I was like, this can't be happening. He doesn't get to have happy moments. He really does.
It would have been great if it did happen, because then they could have killed her in this book. That would have been nice.
I just thought it was awkward.
Well, it's Harry and sex. Of course, it's awkward.
So true.
You know, the whole getting murdered at the end.
Yeah.
That was just rude.
It's very praying mantis.
I was going to say it's very Tessa.
But it didn't seem very Lashiel, so it seemed like a very bad dream.
Yeah, even looking back, it doesn't. I mean, obviously you see the eyes and this and the other, but
Yeah, it
I
was.
never much thought of Lashiel.
It was probably just his id, you know, like just showing.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
But his id needs to work on how to formulate a message.
Well, his id tells him he can't just do these things. He can't. You know, this is what he's reduced to. This is what he can do.
His id is too powerful, so he can't just come out and say things.
Well, no, Harry's stubbornness is too powerful, so he can't penetrate it.
Is that a pun?
Which one?
Never mind.
So after the dream, Murphy actually then comes into the room, and they have a nice acknowledgement and conversation about how they're going to talk about this after.
Yeah.
And then the donuts.
Yeah.
Because we're not Freud enough yet. We need donuts. So you're welcome.
Damn it.
We're gonna kill Ben. I mean, Ben's like completely muted. He's just watch him as he starts to explode. He's turning red. He's swelling up. Oh no! Avert your eyes.
Okay. And
but he's silent like you were when you were leaning away from your mic. Look at him. You gave him the vapors. Oh, I do declare.
For the listeners, after the fact, this is a lot better with video. We also put this out with no video, so it might not have made a lot of sense because Benjamin is gesticulating with his face right now. That's why it sounds like I'm talking to myself.
You are talking to yourself.
Okay. We have made it to chapter 15, and this is when we have a conversation about the goats in the pen and how they've been disappearing.
Hold on. You can't just skip over the donuts.
The donuts are not yet.
It's one of
They're not plot relevant yet.
What? Really?
The donuts are after the conversation with Michael.
All right.
Goats are important, man.
Goats. No, because they didn't go into my notes, so nobody cares.
Yeah, because they're not gruff, so they're not the kind of goats that matter.
I like goats. They matter.
Oh my goodness. All right. Continue.
Take it from the head goat. They don't matter.
I mean, they're literally red shirts, right? They're just there to die.
Yes.
Even though none of them died.
I mean, they were eaten.
The goats were eaten.
I'm saying like the competent goats with submachine guns.
No, yeah.
They don't die.
They did have the iron poisoning, though, which, according to Tiny, was worse.
It's worse because, like, you know, it's like a billion paper cuts, but it's not worse.
All right. So Nicodemus did not tell anyone what was taking the goats, and it's freaking out all of his tongueless red shirts. And Dresden, like, needles them because, of course, he does.
Yeah.
Right.
This is where we meet Gray, right?
Yes. And then there's the donuts, and he sits down with a pile of donuts, and Asher has one, and no one else really cares. And then Gray is there, and they start posing at each other.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking about the burgers is after with Michael.
Yeah. The donuts of darkness.
Right, yeah. Which can only be
saving them
cleansed in the fiery belly of a wizard of the White Council.
All right. Now we can go.
You feel better?
The important stuff. Yeah.
You feel better? We talked about the donuts and Dresden shitting them out later.
Oh yeah. So anyway, I almost did a turbo flush joke, but in any case, like they kind of start getting all antsy, right, and almost do like the pull guns on everybody thing, and then Goodman Gray's just totally sitting there chilling.
Yeah, like everyone is all tense and ready to fire at something. But they don't know what. They're just freaked out, and Gray is as relaxed as he could possibly be.
And then Dresden does the whole, like, reached into his coat and, ha-ha, and throws a file down on the table, so.
Yep. Just to see everyone twitch, because you can.
Right.
All
Yeah,
right.
and then pretty much immediately, like, so spoilers for those if you haven't read this or this is your first time through, right? So you find out much later in the book that there's a code that Goodman Gray and Harry have worked out and everything, and so like that starts out immediately, and basically the entire rest of the book is Goodman Gray going now.
I think the first time he actually used it was when they were in the car surveilling Harvey. Because in this, they're just like acting at each other, and Gray likes to flirt with Karen and shit like that. And then in the car, when Harry was saying we don't kill Harvey because he would be upset about it, Gray turns over like, Wizard, does this actually matter to you? And he says, yeah, it does.
Well, he uses the term once in this conversation now.
Yeah,
Does
because he says, "Wizard, was I now?" or something like
Yeah,
that.
I wasn't actually talking to you, Wizard, was I now?
Yeah, but that's not actually like, that's not the code. It's just
I mean, yeah, but
saying it.
They don't actually follow the code to the letter most of the time if you look at it, right? So it's just Wizard is the start of the sentence, and then you know, Dresden. So because Dresden's answers are always supposed to be one word as well, aren't they?
The first word of the sentence that he replies with is the answer. So yes or no.
Or not yet, which not doesn't make any sense, you know. So that's why I'm saying like not yet is the answer. So because there are loads of instances like it's not yet, and then he goes blah blah blah, you know, I'll kick your ass later or whatever. But Goodman Gray only cared about those two words. So
right,
I
so
wrote almost all
is,
of them down. So
yeah, I was gonna say this could count because this is like, okay, we're here at the stage point. Is this where we're gonna fuck them over? No. Okay, next.
Didn't really seem like that to me when I was listening through this time. But
that's why it's a code. It's so great.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's like, seriously, you've been here for 2 minutes. You want to whip them out already after they've established that they're not actually going to throw down?
Right.
Fun.
And that adds like an extra whole layer to it too, like watching the whole thing, because Goodman Gray also hasn't actually worked with Dresden, right? I'm sure he knows about him by reputation, but there are several times where like Goodman Gray acts surprised, and I think he's legitimately surprised, and he's legitimately like, maybe he can, or maybe he would, or you know, something like that. When they're posturing and doing some of these other things, there are plenty of times where he doesn't seem to care, because Goodman Gray knows he's a total badass, so he's not going to be pushed around and intimidated either. But there were definitely some times where I saw Dresden kind of like push him, make him blink or something like that. So he's either an amazing actor, which I'm sure he also is, or you know, just totally was kind of taken aback by like, wow, your reputation really is deserved. You really do mouth off to everybody.
Sure. So, I mean, let's face it. He's been hired. Dresden hires him with like Odin say so. So Odin's also vouching for both of them to each other. And he knows Harry's mother, if not personally, at a minimum by reputation, but almost certainly personally.
Right.
And, you know, all the stories throughout the years, he knows who he's playing with in Nicodemus, so. And
however old Gray is, we don't know that, but he's certainly been around for a really long time.
Yeah, he's old. Yeah. I mean, Jim has mentioned the Monsters LLC could go through time, right? So, I mean, we're talking hundreds, if not several millennia.
That would be fun.
I'd say easily hundreds for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if he's only half of what was Shag Nasty? Two millennia? At least 2000, give or take. So.
Gotcha.
Okay, so they discuss Harvey some more, and Gray says that they need a sample, so they have to go get it. Other people are going to do other prep things like getting weapons, how to get into it, and whatever spells that they need. Of like, someone needs to make a lot of noise and someone needs to open a wall.
Right. Yeah, Asher is their breacher. Murphy is helping Binder with the guns, stuff like that. So
yeah, Valmont has a thing of this safe has never been cracked before. It may not be possible. Just to make things tense.
Right.
I do think it's interesting that Asher, who we know already has the coin at this point, knows enough about Dresden to say, oh, it's loud and obvious. That sounds like Dresden to me. And if she just met the man, even just seen him once, she might have come to that conclusion.
Well, that's exactly what he did at the party, right? It's
that is,
loud and obvious.
Right. But to know that's his character, that's exactly what he is. That's there's a kind of confidence behind that kind of assessment that I think is not just based off one incident. But maybe that might be a reach on my part.
Well, I mean, yeah, she's also being fed, I'm sure, information, or at least from a certain viewpoint for all these weeks and months that she's been in Denarian.
Right, exactly. Or even straight from Nicodemus.
Mhm.
We'll be talking to this wizard, and he's an idiot.
And plus, she would have gotten it from Binder. I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, he has a reputation in the community in general, right?
sure, but I mean, she's got to, she's got firsthand experience from a bunch of different ears to tell her,
Hmm.
or eyes rather.
Okay. So people have assignments, and Harry and Gray and Deidre all get to go on a field trip to find a sample of Harvey.
Yay!
All right. You are muted again.
I think he's doing it on purpose now. I think he's just miming.
Yeah. Gray
Push
seems
the couch
confused
forward.
by literally driving around in circles because Harvey's office is shared with a bank in a building. It's like, oh, right, we need to not draw too much attention because banks have security. And they find a spot and they watch the building and they wait.
Yep. They wait and they wait and they wait. And they have a conversation about whether or not they're going to kill him. And he does his other wizard thing. Is it important for you to keep this man safe? And he says, yeah.
And then he's all sarcastic. Yay, that was so easy to change your mind.
Mhm.
Because he has to be sarcastic.
No, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then mommy shows up.
It's never a good thing to see your parent in a surprise visit when you're an adult. That's just what I've learned. You want warning to deal with that.
Yeah. Less so when she's a nearly 2,000
You need to clean your
monster.
apartment.
Yeah. Okay. And Deirdre says this thing of she was supposed to be in Iran and then shuts up because she wasn't supposed to be saying much about it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So Gray impersonates Nicodemus to be able to delay it a few minutes. Harry goes and tries to save Harvey, and Deirdre's supposed to be doing the talking and Tessa to also do the delaying. Right. And Harvey is extremely confused when his computer does the blue screen of death as soon as Harry walks into the room.
What? Is that's there, right? Where he's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because computers aren't supposed to crash exactly when you need them not to.
Or microphones to work when they're supposed to.
Well, one of those is a problem of the Murphyonic field around Harry, and the other one is a problem of proximity for someone who doesn't want to sit forward. Two different issues. Anyway, so
Yeah.
lots of running, lots of screaming, lots of this.
Well, then there's another one of those pop culture references of "Come with me if you want to live," right?
I got that one, okay? Thank you.
You opened the door for this.
The Oppenheim thing is not a pop culture reference.
So what
it's
what
a
is
language reference that's so obvious?
so what is the pop culture reference there, Andreas? Come with me if you want to live. What is that from?
Terminator.
Okay, great. You get that.
Technically, it's T2, but whatever.
Of course, it's the second one because the first one is the bad guy.
I thought the first one.
Kyle Reese says it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Yeah, but that doesn't count because nobody references it in response to Kyle Reese.
Come with me if you want to live. Because it's more fun to do an Arnold accent.
References the first movie, so if you're
That's
referencing
true.
the second
The Terminator movies all have the same plot. They're all the same story. They're not.
You clearly haven't watched the newest one.
Oh, that's true. I have not.
Bach is a T2 reference. Come with me if you want to live. I mean, yes, people are referencing the second one, but
No, I'll be back is a T1 reference.
Yeah.
So they do it in both as well. Then,
Yeah.
There you go. It's
Right,
just
but
like
they're
I've got a
referencing
bad
it in
feeling,
T1.
like a bad feeling about this in Star Wars. Like everybody says it at least once in the trilogy. So,
That's different.
no.
I mostly remember the second Terminator though, but that's probably because the first one came out before I was born, I think, or around when I was born.
First one came out before all of us.
So did Star Wars.
Well, they don't have VHS or DVD or Blu-ray in Sweden.
No, they
So-
currently have VHS in Sweden. But
That's true. They just got it. They just got it last year.
They just don't have Netflix.
No, they have the mail-in Netflix.
I think I watched Terminator 2 before Terminator 1 as well.
Well, that's your fault for going out of order, you fucking heathen.
I was a child. I'm pretty sure it was just on TV.
Right. Most
They
people.
have a new streaming service in Denmark, Disney Minus.
Actually, we don't have any Disney anything here. It's
better
gone.
for it.
Anyway, 2 minutes. Do we got anything else we can cover in 2 minutes?
I don't know. Maybe we should save the fight scene for next time.
There's a bunch of ghouls and they fight and Harvey dies at the end.
Hey, that's covered.
And Dresden is sad.
Dresden is
And
angsty no
Dresden
matter what
fights
happens.
really badass. And loose, fights until he can't stay awake anymore.
Dresden could literally have the perfect day where nothing goes wrong. Zoo Day could have gone perfectly and he still would have had angst.
I feel like I really like this book, but there's just so much just stuff before the final climax. It's structured exactly like a heist story because it is one where it's just boring for about an hour, and then the last half hour it's all the good parts. And so this is it's fine, but then once they get to the vault, that's when it really takes off. And everything up to is just build up. Just
Aren't most books build up and then climax? Isn't that the structure that you learned in third grade English?
No, he wants it to be like changes where from the very jump it's, Harry, they took our daughter.
I mean, that's fun too, but still it has the build up until fucking Chichen Itza.
Yes, he basically he wants Endgame before you get
Yeah, that's what the
Winter
DC
Soldier.
film.
That's what he
better.
wants.
No. I like a Turncoat. Turncoat is fantastic because it's not so much about a slow buildup. It's about investigating each of the players and coming to the dramatic conclusion at the end. So there is setup and payoff, and that's structured.
Another one that starts with a
that
bang
always
right at
exists.
the beginning, so you're already heightened to that.
Oh, I suppose that's true.
If this one had started off with, fucking a spirit burst forth from my head, and that was weird, you
Yeah.
probably would have thought, this shit was going down a little more.
Well,
Mm.
we're pretty
Oh.
close to an hour. You want to plug the shit?
Sure. Thank you for watching the Dresden Files podcast, a presentation of the Broken Jars Network. We have all sorts of podcasts, and only one of them is about the Dresden Files. For example, there's High Fantasy on hiatus, but check it out in the backlog.
Did we say we weren't going to plug that one anymore?
Oh, well, I just did. So watch it. There's also what's the other thing? Oh, Great Scott! It just had its last episode, right?
They're going to really.
They're going to.
soon. Yeah.
And
It's,
a real
the-
opportunity if
the,
they don't then go into the Back to the Future movies.
Well, they're looking at what they might do. Maybe might look at shows that only lasted a season. They don't know what they're going to do next.
Kinda
But they just
thinking-
finished.
We should have a
Dresden Files
podcast
show.
that is just pop culture, the podcast, and so just talk about whatever the fuck you want. All about it.
Oh, okay.
Bring
So
Andreas on; he'll get all
so
the
like-
references.
Exactly.
So like the Nerd Crew. So maybe we'll do the Nerd Crew. But in any case, we got all this stuff. Let's see, Sim Talk with about very professional podcast about very professional simulations.
They don't have volume issues on their podcast because they're
They
professionals.
don't. And then, also, hey, check out the links below in the description below for Drive-Through RPG and the Patreon and stuff. Because we gotta pay some bills. So help us pay a few little bills now that Google Hangouts is kaput. And what else? Any other-
Preferably with double whatever we're asking for.
DMs Anonymous. So Andreas, talk to us about DMs Anonymous.
If you want to hear about what was the latest episode, it's the same thing as the last two times. We haven't recorded.
There's no
Hooray!
such thing.
But if you want to hear about dungeon mastering or game mastering for tabletop RPG pen and paper games, we have a podcast.
Where would we go? Maybe we could have a whole episode of this nerd podcast on the leaks to Rise of Skywalker.
That movie comes out in like 2 minutes. When are they
That's
going to
true.
do it?